Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Lailatul Husna. I'm from class 3A, and in this video, I'm going to presentation about proposal seminar. And the title of the proposal is Improving the Students' Mastery of Vocabulary Through Games. Okay. In the chapter 1, introduction. First is background of study. There are several backgrounds of the study. First is teaching vocabulary through games is effective technique. And the second is using games bring so many things for student and teacher. And the last is the researchers' interest in using game when teaching in the classroom. Next is research problem. The problem in this research is the students cannot measure English well because there are lack of vocabulary, the lack of motivation. Games are one effective and interesting technique that can motivate and challenge the student interest, improving the student communicative competence. Next is purpose of study. The purpose of study is to find out whether the using games can improve the student mastering of vocabulary. The next is basic assumption. There are three things, basic assumption. First is game activities can increase the student mastering of vocabulary. The second is if the teacher is using games in the classroom, the student master of vocabulary will be automatically increased. The last is mastery of vocabulary is very important because without mastery of vocabulary, students cannot increase their English competence in listening, speaking, writing, and reading. Next is research question. The question in this research is, can teaching vocabulary through games improve the students' mastery of English vocabulary? And then the hypothesis. Hypothesis in this proposal is, in teaching and learning vocabulary through games can improve students' mastery of vocabulary. Next is significance of study. First is, as an input data for the English teachers about the using games in the classroom and the importance of vocabulary in teaching English. The second is to motivate students to impress their vocabulary. The third is, it is hoped that this study will contribute or will be of any value to other students in conducting further research of the similar topic. The last is directly. The writer's knowledge can be developed by investigating the topic. Next is definition of terms. There are two definitions of terms in this proposal. First is game activity and then vocabulary. Game activity. Game also help the teacher to create a context in which the language is useful and meaningful. Vocabulary. In order to communicate well in a foreign language, students should acquire an adequate number of the words and should know how to use them accurately. Next is chapter 2, review of literature. In this chapter 2, there are several things should discuss in this. There are several things discussed in this chapter. First is teaching. Teaching means is a systematic way. Teacher as an organizer should be creative to make learner interest in following the subject. Teaching may be said to cover not only activities of the guiding students' activity, but also those which aim at helping students develop themselves and be able to adapt themselves in the group to which they belong. As the result of teaching, their students should be able to interesting in their group. They're learning to think, feel, and act in harmony through social groups of which they are a part. And then vocabulary. Vocabulary is one important aspect in learning a foreign language. Without a proportional amount of vocabulary, anyone will have trouble in speaking, reading, listening, and writing. With a share of doubt, the writer said the appreciation of vocabulary will help people in gaining understanding and also enhancing the process of knowledgeable transfer for a better life. According to Harimukti Kriyadaksana, vocabulary is a component of language that maintains all of information about meaning and using word in a language. The third is games. According to Jeremy Harmer, games are a vital part of teachers' equipment, not only for the language practice they provide, but also for the therapeutic effect they have. They can be used at any stage of a class to provide an amusing and challenging respect from other classroom activity about their English class. The first is the type of games. There are several types of games, but I will explain the example of two games. First is hangman games. Hangman games is game that the student play on groups. Before start the games, teacher explain how to play the game. The student must memorize the word about everything. For example, about animal, the student must memorize the name of animal. After that, teacher divide the student into two groups. The student must guess the word is that A, I, U, and etc. And if the word they guess false, teacher make on the board the picture people hang. And then guessing games. Guessing games can be countless ways to develop or reinforce any of concept. Guess what I am or guess who I am. For example, can be used to teach about animals, professions, or people in different age group, baby, child, teenager, young adult, middle-aged adult, and elderly person. Guess what I'm doing can be used to teach or recognition in the target of language of activities such as taking a bath, go finishing, doing homework, and so forth. Next is why game activities. There is some reason why activities in teaching learning process game are very important in teaching English as a foreign language. Games are highly motivating because they are amusing and interesting. They can be used to give practice in all language skill and be used to practice many types of communication. There are many advantages of using game in the classroom. First is games are welcome from the usual routine of the language class. And second is they are motivating and challenging. And the third, learning a language requires a great deal of effort. Games help students to make and sustain the effort of learning. The third is games provide language practice in the various skills, speaking, writing, listening, and reading. And the fifth is they encourage students to interact and communicate. The last is they create a meaningful context for language use. The last is the use of game in developing mastering of vocabulary. It means learning vocabulary through game is one effective and interesting way that can be applied in any classroom. The result of this research suggests that games are used not only for more fun, but importantly for the useful practice and review of language lesson, thus leading toward an goal of improving learners' communicative competence. Next is chapter 3, researching methodology. There are 5 research methodology in this proposal. First is research design. In this research, the writer would like to collect, process, analyze the data to get conclusion of the research. This research is called quantitative research because it will use number of statistics. In this research, Pre-experimental design with one group, pretest and post-test design will be used. Pretest is the test which given to the students before the treatment. The post-test is given to the student after the treatment to find out the student's achievement. The second is population and sample. Population is the area in which you are trying to get information from, and the sample is a section of your population that you are actually going to survey. The third is data collection. The writer gives the student the pretest and post-test used to test the two groups of students. Pretest and post-test are the same in room as well as its content, but the time and IM are different. The first is instrument. The data will be collected through a test. The test will be in form of written tests. They are objective and easy. Essay tests. They are pre-test and post-test. The test is arranged according to the material given. And then the last is data analysis. In analyzing the obtained data, the writer will use mean score formula. Okay, that's all from my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.